I'm going to be making some scented water, flower water, in this case lavender. I have harvested my lavender, I've cleaned it and dried it and put it aside until I was ready to do something with it. In this case, I'm going to make flower water and show you how I do that. This morning I'm going to trim up some more of my lavender. This one, you can see, needs to be trimmed. Lavender, unlike rosemary, needs to be cut back pretty severely, where rosemary you only want to take about 1/3 of it at a time. I had trimmed this one back several months ago. I needed some lavender, and luckily it had the little, what I call, almost sometimes looks like chicks and hens. Sometimes the real nice healthy ones will get a lot of fullness here. I have another one here, much larger. But if you don't trim up the lavender, then come summer, what's going to happen is the lavender leaves start dying here. It's a bit too much of a stretch. This will not develop. It'll try to give the strength to the upper leaves. As this dies, this will get spindly. So best thing is to trim this back, and it will develop into a nice bigger bush. You have to bite the bullet. I've had some very nice strong lavender, and it's like almost painful. You have so much of it, it looks so beautiful. But if you don't trim it back in the spring, I could have done this in February easy, because here in Florida we don't have snow and stuff. It gets cold, but these lavender bushes don't mind the cold. Snow up north might do more. You would have to ask somebody in Michigan or someplace where they have these beautiful lavender farms. But here, no. You can start cutting them in February. Now's the time that I want to do it. I'm now preparing to go out of town for several months. So this is how I do my lavender. I've taken the lavender out of the bowl. I washed it, and I have it out here drying. So I've taken the washed and dried out, just, not wet. Lavender, and put it in the dehydrator. And then I have a little bit left that I think I'm gonna put ribbons on and stick them in like closets, tuck it back in a corner. And then here we go. It's on here to cook, kind of cook for a while. It's just gonna heat it up and dry it out. I like to do this slow so it doesn't burn off too much of the oils. Lavender is dry. Had it in the dehydrator for a couple of days. I mean, during the night I turned it off, but it wasn't quite dry, so the next day I turned it back on again. So now I have all this nice dried lavender, and I will end up taking the lavender off the stalks, try to get a little more of the leaves, go through this. So the process for me is that I have a nice pot. I have a large pot. I'm going to try to get one that's smaller, because this is for doing a lot of boiling, but it has a glass lid. And I used to, when I first started doing this, doing with a canning thing that isn't clear. So I had to just kind of fool with it to see how long it would end up filling the bowl that I put in here. This is a brick that I have been using for over a decade. So it's the thing that I put on the bottom here, so that when I put the bowl that I use to catch the mist that comes up, it kind of distills the water. I end up putting lavender around in the bottom. And then I have some newer that I just did in the last month. just get it in here. Is lavender, and it's the leaves. I use the leaves of the lavender for things like this. I don't, here in Florida, I don't have as much of the flower coming out, so that I can just harvest those and use those. I use the green, the foliage. And so I end up putting this down in here. And then you could use regular water, but I have found that even doing this distilling, I sometimes have problems. Like when I had well water, it seemed as though even though it distills it, it doesn't, I'm not quite sure that it takes out all of the impurities. But for the most part, it probably does. So I actually am using either spring water or distilled. I just like it to be nice, and I didn't bring a spoon, so I'm just going to slush this around. I've washed my hands. And so now I'll be ready to turn on my nice little stove, my butane stove. What I'm doing now is I'm simmering the lavender in here in this pot. And while I'm doing, the lid is upside down so that as it catches the liquid from the steam, this is something that can be done, whether it's a clear lid or a solid lid, that it will actually drip down to the center and drip into the bowl. And I periodically put some ice in here to kind of speed it up a little bit. And you'll see in a bit how that looks. Now, I'm going to take this off, cool down a little bit so I can handle the lid. And you can see there is our scented lavender water. And I know what's in there left. There's still some, but that's not distilled. It's boiled. It'll make a scent, but you want something that doesn't have the impurities. So now I'll let it cool in here. And after it cools down, I'll put it in a bottle that I can use. If I want to use this to refresh my face, it's hot in the summer and I want to use lavender instead of rose, because rose is my favorite, I can go ahead and put this in a spray bottle. But for the most part, I'm getting ready to do lotion, some lavender lotion, and so I'll probably use it for the lavender lotion.